The eastbound platform always had the same late-afternoon rhythm. Commuters shifting their weight, backpacks thumping against legs, the distant hum of cars on the overpass. For most people, it was background noise. But for Kyle Redding, who had spent 35 years as a firefighter in Camden, every sound still carried meaning. He was 60 now, retired, trying hard to convince himself that normal life was safe enough. But old habits stayed. He scanned people the way he used to scan rooms during a call, noting posture, mood, tension. He'd come early to pick up his wife. She worked 2 stops down, and riding together was one of the small routines he'd been trying to reclaim. Instead of alarms, radios, and diesel engines, he was learning to live with quiet again. Some days were easier than others. Across the platform, a group of teenagers gathered near the yellow line. Nothing unusual, just kids killing time. One boy stood slightly apart, hood up, earbuds jammed in, shifting from foot to foot as if restless. Kyle watched without really meaning to. It wasn't suspicion, it was muscle memory. The station PA crackled, warning about the incoming express that wouldn't stop at this platform. The message played a few times a day, but the tone always changed a bit before an express rolled through. That subtle change had saved Kyle's life once on a highway call. Now it made his shoulders tighten. A breeze pushed along the tracks, that strange pulse of air that always came before a fast train. People stepped back automatically. The teenagers didn't. The boy with the hood leaned forward to check the tunnel where the track curved. His sneaker slipped an inch. He corrected himself, jerking back. The others laughed, thinking he'd done it on purpose. Kyle's brain marked the movement like a camera snapping a frame. The boy shifted again, this time pulling his phone out while still half over the yellow line. A tiny mistake. The kind Kyle had seen turned deadly in a heartbeat. He opened his mouth to call out, but another teenager clapped the boy on the back right then. Not hard, just enough to throw off his balance. The boy's foot caught the edge. His weight pitched forward. The phone flew from his hand, hit the rail, and clattered between the ties. He tried to grab it, and that instinct pulled him the rest of the way down. The sound he made wasn't a scream, more a sharp breath cut short. Then he disappeared from sight entirely. The group froze. A woman nearby gasped. Someone yelled for help. Kyle didn't need to think. His legs were already moving, the same way they had on hundreds of calls, long before thought could catch up. He reached the edge of the platform and looked down. The boy lay on his side in the gravel, stunned, looking up but not moving. His headphone cord was tangled around his arm. His phone was half under the rail. The kid couldn't have been more than 15. A horn sounded in the distance. Long, aggressive, too close. Kyle didn't hesitate. He dropped from the platform, boots slamming into the ballast. The impact jolted his knees, but the old strength was still there. He crouched next to the boy. "Hey, look at me," Kyle said, steady voice, the same tone he'd used with victims for decades. "We're getting out of here. Now." The boy blinked, dazed. My phone." "Forget the phone." Kyle reached under the kid's arm, checking quickly for obvious injuries. No bleeding, no fractures he could feel through the hoodie. Good enough. He pulled him upright. Another horn blasted, louder this time, closer, the kind that rattled teeth and warned you it wasn't slowing. Above them, people were shouting. Someone was screaming for the conductor. Someone else was yelling to jump back up. Kyle didn't look. He focused on the boy's feet, making sure they weren't caught under the rail while he lifted. He boosted the kid toward the platform edge. 2 men leaned down immediately, grabbing the boy under the arms. They hauled him up in one motion. The wind from the approaching train pushed through the tunnel like a punch. Gravel trembled under Kyle's boots. He planted his hands on the concrete lip and prepared to climb. That was when the real danger hit him. The brief, cold realization that he'd timed this wrong. He had seconds, maybe less, and the train wasn't slowing. Only the vibration and the growing roar told him how close it already was. Kyle inhaled once, deep and controlled, the way he always had before committing to a move that might hurt. Then he pushed upward. Kyle's hands hit the edge of the platform harder than he meant to. Decades of carrying gear had left his shoulders strong, but not as fast as they used to be. His fingers slipped for a half second before he locked them in place. The concrete scraped against his palms. He pulled, feeling his arms strain. The express burst into view from the tunnel, its headlights flooding the tracks with white light. The horn blasted again, the kind that cut straight through bone. People on the platform stepped back with instinctive fear. A few covered their mouths. A woman yelled for him to hurry. Someone else shouted at the train even though yelling wouldn't change physics. Kyle didn't waste a glance. He kicked off the ballast, throwing his weight upward. His left boot slipped on loose gravel. His shin smacked the platform edge, pain shooting up his leg. He kept pulling, using whatever strength he had left. A man reached down, one of the same guys who had hauled up the teenager. Their eyes met for a split second. The man grabbed Kyle's wrist without hesitation. "Come on, I got you." Together they managed a final heave. Kyle rolled onto the platform just as the train roared past the spot his boots had been. The blast of air hit like a shove. Papers flew. A woman screamed. The train streaked by with such speed that nobody could quite process what had almost happened until it was already gone. Just a long metal shadow shrinking down the rails. Kyle stayed on his back for a long moment, chest heaving. His heart hammered, not with panic, but with the sharp, familiar adrenaline that came with surviving something that shouldn't have allowed a second chance. He stared up at the iron beams of the platform roof, noticing flecks of rust he'd never seen before. The man who had grabbed him, mid-40s, office clothes, still breathing hard, knelt beside him. "You all right?" Kyle nodded. "Yeah, just give me a second." The man let out a rough laugh of relief. "You're insane, you know that?" He offered a hand. Kyle took it and got to his feet. His knees complained, but the rest of him held steady. A small crowd had gathered. Some were shaken. Others were talking rapidly, nervous energy spilling out. A woman in scrubs said she'd called 911. Another commuter kept pacing, replaying the moment to anyone who'd listen. Kyle's eyes searched for the teenager. The boy sat on a bench near the corner of the platform, elbows on his knees, breathing fast. His hoodie sleeve was ripped. His face was pale. One of his friends hovered beside him, unable to stop apologizing. Kyle walked over, slower than he meant to. His left leg was stiff from where it hit the concrete. The boy looked up the moment Kyle approached. "You okay?" Kyle asked. The kid swallowed hard. I didn't think it was that close. I thought I had time." Nobody ever thought they didn't have time. That was the truth Kyle had learned in countless emergency calls. "You're all right," Kyle said, keeping his tone level. "That's what matters right now." The boy wiped his face with the back of his hand, embarrassed. "My phone's gone." Kyle gave a tired nod. "Better your phone than everything else." One of the kid's friends stepped forward, still in shock. "Dude, you almost died. He saved you." The boy stared at the tracks, then at Kyle. "Why'd you jump? You didn't even know me." Kyle studied the kid's expression, confused, shaken, trying to understand something bigger than the moment. He felt a tightness in his chest that wasn't fear, and wasn't quite pride either. It was something older, something from years of scenes just like this, where decisions were made before thoughts could catch up. He answered honestly, "Because someone had to." The boy nodded slowly, as if that made sense but still hurt to hear. The station supervisor arrived at that point, mid-50s windbreaker with the transit logo, radio clipped to his chest. He came at a fast walk. "Everybody all right here? That express wasn't supposed to be that early." He looked at Kyle. "Sir, we've got EMS on the way. You need to be checked out." "I'm fine," Kyle said, though his leg throbbed. Old habit again. The supervisor gave him a look. "You just jumped in front of a train. Humor me." Kyle didn't argue. As much as he hated being on the receiving end of protocol, he respected it. And he knew that after an incident like this, checkups weren't optional. A siren wailed from the street level, local fire engine by the sound of it. Kyle recognized the tone. Ladder unit. 2 blocks out. It brought a wave of memories he hadn't been expecting, the kind that crawled under the ribs. The boy looked at him again. "My mom's gonna freak out. She's gonna be glad you're alive," Kyle said. The boy cracked a shaky laugh. "Yeah, that too." When the firefighters reached the platform, boots clattering against concrete, Kyle felt something he hadn't felt in a long time. The subtle pull of duty, the sense that he still belonged among people who ran toward danger. One of the firefighters paused when he saw Kyle. "No way," the firefighter said, recognizing him. "Redding? I thought you retired." Kyle shrugged. "I did. Bad timing, that's all." The firefighter glanced at the tracks and let out a slow whistle. "Hell of a jump for a retiree." Kyle didn't answer. He just watched as the paramedics approached the teen, preparing to check him over. For the first time since the near miss, Kyle felt his hands start to shake. The paramedics split into a practiced rhythm the moment they reached the bench. One went to the teenager, speaking calmly, already checking pupil response and airway. The other glanced at Kyle. "You too," she said, tapping her glove against her palm. "You took a hit to the leg, sit down." Kyle didn't argue this time. He lowered himself onto the nearest bench. The adrenaline had drained enough for the ache to settle in properly. His leg felt like it had its own heartbeat. The medic crouched in front of him. "Name?" "Kyle Redding." Her brow lifted a bit. "Former Camden Fire?" "Yeah," he said. She gave a short nod. Respect without ceremony. "I'm Jenna. Let's take a look." She pressed along the shin and calf with careful fingers. "Sore?" "Yeah." "Sharp pain anywhere? Tingling? Numbness?" "No." "Good. Nothing feels fractured, just a hard impact. You'll bruise like hell." She checked his vitals, quick and efficient. "Pulse elevated, but that's expected. You should still get an X-ray to be safe." "I'll think about it," Kyle said. Jenna gave him the same look he used to give stubborn patients. "Don't think. Do." Before he could answer, the boy's mother arrived at a full sprint. She must have run the ramp stairs 2 at a time. She pushed through the small crowd, fear written all over her face. The moment she saw her son sitting upright, she exhaled so hard it looked like her legs nearly gave out. She dropped to her knees in front of him. "Ethan, what happened? Are you hurt?" "Mom, I'm fine," the boy said. "It was stupid. I slipped." The mother hugged him tight enough that he winced. She pulled back and looked around. Who helped him? Who? Her eyes landed on Kyle. She walked straight to him, still breathing unevenly. "They told me you jumped down there. You saved him." Kyle shifted, uncomfortable under the attention. "He did most of the work, I just gave him a lift." But the mother reached out and squeezed his arm. "Thank you," she said, voice thick. "I don't know how to... just thank you." Kyle nodded once. "He's okay. That's what matters." She kept talking, but her words blurred a little. Not because she was emotional, because Kyle's own mind had slipped somewhere else. Something about the tightness in her voice, the way she clung to her son, triggered a memory he hadn't invited. A teenage boy on a roadway, rain. A car pinned against a light pole, the smell of gasoline. Kyle crawling through broken glass to reach a kid who kept saying he was scared. Kyle telling him to hold on, telling him help was coming, telling him to breathe. But the kid had stopped breathing before they got him out. The platform around him faded for a moment. His hands trembled again. Jenna noticed. "Kyle, hey." She tapped his knee lightly. "Stay with me." He blinked hard, the station coming back into focus. "I'm good," he said, even though he wasn't. "You sure?" she asked quietly, reading him better than he wanted. "Yeah." The express had long since gone, and the regular commuter train was delayed now. People were drifting away, some still talking about what they'd seen. A few glanced at Kyle with that look you only got after doing something that scared everyone else. Kyle hated that look. The boy, Ethan, stood up with help from his mother. The paramedics cleared him with instructions to monitor for dizziness and avoid walking the edge of any platform for a while. His friends hovered farther back now, subdued, the earlier bravado gone. Ethan approached Kyle hesitantly. "Sir?" Kyle turned. "Yeah?" Ethan swallowed. "I just wanted to say that I'm sorry for putting you in that position." Kyle shook his head. "You didn't put me anywhere. I made my own call, but you got hurt." Kyle looked at his bruised shin. "That's nothing." Ethan nodded, unsure. "I don't really know how to thank someone for something like that." "You don't need to," Kyle said. "Just pay attention next time. Tracks aren't forgiving." Ethan nodded again, then let his mother pull him away down the platform. Jenna packed her bag. "You want to ride to the ER or are you heading home?" "I'm waiting for my wife," Kyle said. "She'll be here on the next train." Jenna studied him for a moment, as if checking whether he was really steady. "All right, but if your leg swells or you feel off, don't shrug it off. You're not 20 anymore." "I know," Kyle said, managing a small smile. When she and her partner left, the platform finally felt quiet again. The crowd had thinned to just a few commuters. Kyle remained seated, rubbing the side of his leg. The pain wasn't the problem, it was the aftershock. The mental kind he'd gotten too familiar with in his final years on the job. He thought about how automatic it had all been. No hesitation, no planning, just movement. He wondered if that instinct ever fully went away, or if it stayed wired into your bones. waiting for the moment the world demanded it again. A train horn sounded in the distance. The regular commuter at last. Kyle stood steadying himself. His leg protested but held. As the train pulled in, he saw his wife through the window, scanning the platform for him. She spotted him, her face softening with relief. She stepped onto the platform and walked toward him. When she reached him, she touched his arm and frowned. "You're limping." Kyle exhaled slowly. "Long story." She looked past him, noticing the paramedics leaving, the transit supervisor still taking notes, the cluster of shaken commuters. "Oh God," she said. "What happened?" Kyle glanced down the tracks where Ethan had fallen. The gravel was still disturbed, the memory already replaying in his head with too much clarity. "I'll tell you on the way home," he said, voice low. "Let's just get out of here for now." She slipped her hand into his and they walked toward the exit. Kyle moving with the slow, careful steps of a man who had once again come too close to a line he thought he'd left behind. They didn't talk much during the walk to the car. His wife, Laura, kept glancing at his leg, then at his face, trying to read what he wasn't saying. Kyle appreciated that she didn't push. After all the years she'd lived beside the job, she knew that some things took a little time to settle before they could be spoken out loud. When they got inside the car, she finally asked, "How close was it?" Kyle rested both hands on the steering wheel before starting the engine. "Closer than I like to think about." She waited, patient, letting the silence be an answer if he needed it to be. But after a moment, he continued. "A kid fell," Kyle said. "Or slipped. Hard to say. Train was coming in fast. I jumped down, pulled him up. Train missed me by a couple seconds." Laura closed her eyes, letting out a slow breath. "Kyle, I know," he said. "I didn't plan it. It just happened. That's the problem. That's exactly the problem." Her voice wasn't angry. It was scared and tired. "You're not on duty anymore." He didn't respond right away. He wasn't sure how to explain what had gone through him in those seconds. The clarity, the instinct, the tunnel vision that felt like muscle memory more than choice. They drove home on quiet suburban streets, the sun low enough to paint the houses and trees in a soft orange. Everything looked calm, untouched by the kind of danger that could erase someone in the blink of an eye. At home, he eased himself into a kitchen chair while Laura grabbed ice packs. She wrapped one in a towel and pressed it gently against his shin. "You should have gone to the ER, she said. "I'll go if it gets worse." She sat across from him, arms folded. "I know what today was for you, I can see it." "Yeah," Kyle said. "It pulled you back in." He didn't deny it. He leaned back, letting the ice numb the throbbing. "It's been years since the last close call. Years since I felt that switch flip. I thought maybe it was finally gone." "It's never gone," she said quietly. "But that doesn't mean you have to keep carrying it like you're still responsible for everyone." Kyle rubbed the bridge of his nose. "I didn't think. I just moved." "I know. And that's what scares me, because the job trained you to move before thinking, and you're still wired that way." He looked at the floor. "What should I have done? Watched him get hit?" "No," she said immediately. "Of course not. I'm not saying that." She reached across the table, taking his hand. "I'm just scared of losing you to something you don't even choose anymore." Kyle squeezed her hand gently. He understood what she meant. Retired didn't mean switched off. It meant living in a world that didn't need the part of him that always jumped in. But that part never left. It just waited. "I'll be more careful," he said. Laura gave him a look. "Kyle, you've said that before." He couldn't argue. The house stayed quiet for a while. The refrigerator hummed. A dog barked somewhere down the street. Kyle focused on the ice pack melting through the towel. Eventually, Laura stood. "Let me make dinner." "I can help," Kyle offered. "With one leg?" she said. "Sit." He stayed put. After dinner, he stepped outside onto the back porch. The air was cool, and the evening settling in made the neighborhood feel still. He sat on the old wooden steps the way he used to after long shifts, letting his mind unwind. He replayed the moment on the tracks. Not the danger of it, but the kid's face when he realized he might not make it. That raw, frightened stare. He'd seen it too many times in his career, and he'd lost a few kids who'd looked at him the same way. No matter how many years passed, those faces never left. Laura joined him, sitting beside him without saying anything. She leaned her shoulder into his, gentle and grounding. "You thinking about him?" she asked. "Yeah," Kyle said. "You saved him." He nodded once. I know. And you scared yourself. Yeah, he admitted. They sat like that for several minutes, the quiet stretching comfortably this time. Then Laura said, "You know, maybe this doesn't have to be something you carry alone. Maybe you should talk to someone. Not about the rescue, about everything that comes with it." Kyle almost scoffed by instinct. But he didn't. Not this time. Because the truth was, the shaking hands, the memory flash, the tightness in his chest, those weren't from the jump. They were from everything before it. "I'll think about it," he said. "Good," she answered softly. He looked out over the yard. Fireflies blinked near the bushes. A train horn sounded faintly in the distance, nowhere near them but sharp enough to make his pulse jump for a moment. Laura noticed and slipped her hand into his again. He took a slow breath, grounding himself. "I'm not trying to be a hero," Kyle said. "I just use when someone's in trouble, I move." "I know," she said, "and the world's better because of that. But you're still allowed to take care of yourself." Kyle nodded, letting her words settle. They didn't erase anything, but they eased something inside him. They stayed on the porch until the sky went fully dark. Eventually, they went back inside, and Kyle limped toward the bedroom. Before turning off the light, he looked in the mirror. He didn't see a hero. He didn't see the man who jumped into danger that afternoon. He saw someone older, tired, carrying years of calls behind his eyes. But he also saw someone who was still here, bruised, shaken, but alive. And for the first time that night, that felt like enough.